Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. It is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew DiCecco is in for Adam today. Adam will join me on tomorrow's show, so we'll get a little breakdown here from Andrew as we get ready for the Eagles and the 49ers on Sunday. Of course, you can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. I'll welcome Andrew in. What's going on, my man? How are you?
Hey, Mike, doing well. How are you?
Getting ready for another week. It starts to move fast. Week 2 is here. Before we look at some of the Eagles and Niners stuff, a couple thoughts on tonight's game from you. How big, in your opinion, is this NFC East game tonight between the Washington football team and the Giants? A lot of people think 0-2 might be, you're out. I don't see it that way, but how do you kind of look at this one tonight?
I think it's a little too early for it to be, have such a vital impact on the way the division's going to shape up. Obviously, Taylor Heineke starting at quarterback tonight, it sort of cancels it out with the ineffectiveness of the Giants all around. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring affair. I don't think it's going to be a very eventful game, but I think you're going to see a lot of Antonio Gibson, and I'm not sure how much Terry McLaurin is going to be able to find success or any other skill players for that matter, but I think it's going to be you're going to see the running backs have some success tonight.
Yeah, and I know this game is interesting from this aspect for me. See if you agree. The Washington football team up front defensively, one of the best in the league. The Giants up front offensively, one of the worst in the league.
Right, yeah, that game could get ugly pretty quickly. I think Washington has probably, you could argue that they have the best defense in the NFL, right up there with the LA Rams, of course. So, I mean, if they get home early, they can put that game away by halftime.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. All right, that's the game tonight. You can hear it live on 97.3 ESPN. Thursday night football, Washington and New York, NFC East, only here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, over to the Eagles, who are getting ready for the 49ers. Their injury report just came out a couple of minutes ago, and really nothing on there that stands out. I guess Rodney Mcleod, I'll start with him. He was limited today. Not sure if he's going to play, but I wanted to get your take on Kayvon Wallace and how he kind of stepped into that safety spot, if you were able to kind of get a read on the way they used him and how he looked as a second-year player that we didn't know a whole heck of a lot about.
Well, I don't know that you can really gauge too much off on Wallace. I thought early on he looked a little bit out of place, and then he sort of settled in, as you would expect. He hasn't gotten enough reps, but once the game sort of dictated the way that the Falcons one-dimensional, and they're able to all sit back there in their zone, I mean, you weren't really able to take away much from the secondary play. This is going to be a big test this week, a defense or an offense like the 49ers that tends to spread you out, and you have to make your one-on-one tackles when you have those opportunities. And Kyle Shanahan, if he finds the slightest advantage, he's going to attack that weakness and continuously go after it until the Eagles find a way to, or any team finds a way to correct that. So I expect Kayvon Wallace to be tested pretty early this on Sunday.
Yeah, that one's something that kind of worries me a bit because obviously George Kittle, we talked to Moshe yesterday, Andrew, and, they said, they were calling him 15 for 15. He had 15 targets and 15 catches, George Kittle, last year. And that might be something that Kayvon Wallace is going to be asked to do a little bit, is defend Kittle. And I would imagine who else would get that role to have to try to figure out a way to stop George Kittle?
Well, I mean, you could also look at Anthony Harris. He has a little bit more size and strength and experience. So he's a player that you could look at in that matchup. You can also look at maybe an Eric Wilson, who has a nice realm of athleticism and coverage acumen to his skill set. That's what he was brought here for. You could see him draw that matchup. So they have a couple of guys that could be vying for that assignment, but I don't know that, again, much like we thought with Kyle Pitts, I don't know that George Kittle's in another. I mean, it doesn't matter who you put on him. He's just a matchup nightmare, and I anticipate him and also Brandon Ayuk, who I touched on earlier this week. I think they're going to find a way to utilize him this week. I'm not buying the fact that he's in the doghouse or he's fallen out of favor or anything along those lines. Him and George Kittle are the most dynamic and explosive players on offense, so I anticipate them to be featured prominently.
All right, I know, and if I say to Andrew DiCecco, for the listeners out there, I'm going to say Elijah Mitchell, and you're going to be able to tell me a bunch about this guy. So he likely will be the guy on Sunday. What do we expect from the new 49er running back?
Yeah, I mean, there's a tweet out there that I put out on day 3, the morning of day 3 during the draft, where I mentioned Elijah Mitchell as a late-round running back that I thought would ideally pair with Miles Sanders. I said if Kenny Gainwell goes before they have that opportunity, I thought Elijah Mitchell would be a good alternate. He's a 5'11", 215-pound running back from Louisiana Lafayette. He spent most of his time in college with the three-headed monster, Ray Clay, Trey Regis. Was a two-headed rushing attack in his final season there. Doesn't have a ton of tread on the tires, so he's a fresh running back. He's a downhill runner that has enough athleticism and speed to take it outside. Not really a home run threat, but he can catch the ball pretty well as well. I think that he has a good skill set and can be an every down back in this league. I don't buy that last week was a fluke. I think that he fits into what Kyle Shanahan that outside zone running scheme. And he looked very comfortable for a rookie making his NFL debut. So he's a player that I think will mix in with Trey Sermon, who was inactive last week as a bit of a shocker, the third-round pick from Ohio State. And Jermichael Hasty's also there as well. So I think you're going to start to see a rotation of running backs with Elijah Mitchell leading the way.
Yeah, I knew that you would be very good on that question there, Andrew DiCecco, DiCecco NFL, and, of course, football at 4 here. The Eagles getting ready for the 49ers. A lot of injuries on the 49ers side of the ball there, Andrew. I mean, I guess we just talked about one on the offensive side of the ball, but on that defensive side of the ball, a couple guys that are banged up and maybe not even playing the game. You wonder how much the injuries are going to affect them. Obviously, Verrett, he's already out. So let's talk about that, number one. Losing him in their secondary, you would think the Eagles could take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have a rookie in Diamador Lenore, a fifth-round pick from Oregon, who played 90 snaps last week. And he allowed one catch for 3 yards, I believe. He's has a squatty build. He played 90% of the snaps, but he's 5'10", 200, so he has a compact, stronger build, very physical, not overly fluid, Mike, good, but he does have good ball skills, and his eyes can sometimes get him into trouble. But I thought he acquitted himself quite well in his first game. And he's a steady presence. He can play outside, and he can also play the nickel, but I think he's going to be outside this week. So, I mean, he's a player to watch. I thought he did pretty well. I mean, he did have a deep ball go his way that it was sort of overthrown, and that would have marred his debut. But, I mean, I thought he handled himself pretty well. And then also their will linebacker, Dre Greenlaw, he's going to be out. So I think you're going to see Marcel Harris, who backs him up at the will spot. He was a safety at Florida, and then he's more of that hybrid linebacker, strong safety-ish type of player. 38 games, 13 starts. He's undersized, so you get alignment on him, and that could certainly impact the game there, especially if you can get Miles Sanders going. So that's something to watch there, but he does have a little bit of experience. So I mean, yeah, they definitely have some players that are going to be tested early.
Yeah, Greenlaw did not practice. Mosley also did not practice. Eric Armstead also limited. Kinlaw limited. Marcel Harris limited. And D. Ford limited. So there might be more to the injury list for the 49ers. And Ford last week was all over the place in the backfield. Bosa, of course, they had like 9 quarterback hits last week. Ford had 2. Bosa had a bunch. I mean, but some of their key guys are limited or did not practice this week. So this seemingly, Andrew, is becoming more and more of a story as this week goes on, is much like last year for the 49ers. The injuries are mounting, and the Eagles are healthy.
Yeah, and this is not the team that you want to be shorthanded with. I mean, from what we've seen, obviously it's just a one-game sample size, but the Eagles can go up-tempo and really wear down this defense if they're able to find any semblance of a rhythm and carry over that momentum from last week. And the 49ers may not have they may not have enough guys to be able to switch in and out, or they don't have a lot of options, Mike. So what's going to happen is if I'm the Eagles, I'm going up tempo, and I'm attacking some of these inexperienced corner in Lenore, and I'm running directly at Marcel Harris, who is an undersized player, and making those guys beat you.
On the injuries for the 49ers, that's a story. On the other side of the ball, Kyle Shanahan gave kind of a hat tip to Nick Sirianni, and they don't really know each other all that well, but he knows enough about what Sirianni's all about. And he said something very interesting today yesterday, I should say, during his conference call regarding the Eagles head coach and a position that has been a problem for the Eagles for some time now, the wide receivers.
Yeah, I wrote about that for InsideTheBirds.com. They could check out the full comprehensive piece that I wrote. He complimented. He noted that the receivers looked pretty prepared, and he obviously knows that Nick Sirianni had a profound impact on Keenan Allen's development, and that was something that he mentioned in yesterday's press conference.
Yeah, I know that one of the things we look at, Devonta Smith, just such a great route runner, but in this game this week, Watkins, the way they used him last week. Now, he got used a lot early, then they kind of got away from him. Rieger, he didn't get used early. They went to him late. Do you anticipate that Watkins and Rieger have a bigger role in the offense, or is it kind of a week-to-week thing?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a week-to-week thing. I don't know that there's going to be outside of Devontae Smith, who obviously he's the de facto number one receiver, but you're going to see a lot of players. I think, especially with this Eagles team, they're going to each have their weeks. You're going to have a week that Jalen Reagor is going to have some big plays and be the standout player. Then you're going to have Quez Watkins, I think, explode. I don't know if they're all going to be. There's not enough of a big plays for everyone to sort of share that, because you also have the two tight ends, you have the two running backs now with Kenny Gainwell and Miles Sanders. So I think that you're going to see Jalen Reagor possibly become a prominent piece to this game, a key to this game, because of the secondary of the 49ers is banged up. I think there's going to be an opportunity to stretch them vertically, force them to make tackles in space, which is what he's really known for. Same with Quez Watkins. There's going to be an opportunity to really unleash all these offensive weapons that they have. And they're really going to have to, because they're going to have to keep pace with this 49ers offense, because Kyle Shanahan architects a brilliant, fast-rolling offense that you need to be able to – you got to be prepared for everything, because he always brings the element of surprise.
Now, last year the Eagles did beat the 49ers out there. Both teams ravaged by injuries, but the Eagles did win that game last year. Both teams have a lot of different personnel. One guy who I'm very intrigued by to see how he will cause problems for the Eagles offense is Fred Warner. Maybe the best linebacker in the league, but we just don't hear a lot about him because of the position he plays. But how might his role affect the way Nick Sirianni calls the game?
Yeah, I think he's athletic enough, Mike, and that he can control that second level sideline to sideline and maybe spy Jalen Hurts. And he's a factor in coverage. I think we'll see a lot of Dallas Goedert, and he can play the run pretty well too. He's a very well-rounded player. Like you said, you can make an argument that he's the best linebacker in football, and he just has a vast array of things he's able to do, which makes him such a valuable component to their defense. So their defensive game plan is going to center around Fred Warner and his athletic traits and what he's able to do.
Okay, now Mailata obviously had that block last week. That was a highlight block, but he played well other than just the highlight block. But this week's different. Tell us about that matchup, Jordan Mailata and Bosa this week, and how you envision that kind of going.
Well, that's going to be a true test, right? I mean, Jordan Mailata is going to have to make sure that he doesn't leave any room for error, and he's got to be technical with everything. His footwork has to be on point, and I'm sure that Jeff Stoutland's going to be hammering home some of the things that he saw on film this week or last week against the Falcons. Mailata continuously gets better, and there aren't a whole lot of blemishes in his game. He's still a relatively raw prospect, obviously, but just the strength and the lateral agility and the power and his hand usage has made he's made developments in his hand usage and his ability to distribute weight. It's going to be a sort of like a boxing match, I would say. Like they're going to have to counter one another throughout the game. He's not going to win every rep. Nick Bosa is a premier pass rusher, but Jordan Mailata is a heck of a left tackle, and I think he's going to prove this week that the Eagles made a sound investment in locking him up for 4 years.
Now, Andrew, last week it was a clear advantage, Philadelphia's offensive line against Atlanta's defensive front. Where would you put that matchup this week?
Like I said, it's going to be like a boxing match with this week. I mean, obviously the Falcons were flawed on both sides. This week you're going to have a very formidable defensive line in the 49ers, but you also have a very stout and veteran-laden offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles that's pretty healthy, that's healthy, which is key. And I like the Eagles' odds there. I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage, and I think they're going to win the majority of their battles. And then on the defensive line, that's where I think the game is really going to be won for the Eagles, because I would take their defensive line over pretty much everyone outside the Washington football team right now. And that could completely bust the game wide open if they're able to get home early.
Yep. That is, last week, clear, definitive. Same as on the defensive line. The Eagles' defensive line last week, I thought, had a clear advantage over Atlanta, who's, pretty weak up front. But this is a very good San Francisco offensive line. So the Eagles' pass rush might be neutralized a bit this week.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. But, like I mentioned on the Tuesday show, that interior tandem of Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, if they don't even need to get home, but if they're collapsing the pocket and getting in Jimmy Garoppolo's face, he's been prone to turn the football over and make some questionable decisions with the football. And I think that's really good what you're going to start to see early, because Javon Hargrave's healthy. Fletcher Cox is going to continuously demand double teams, and you're going to see a fresh Javon Hargrave take advantage of those opportunities. And I think that I don't know that the 49ers have what it takes inside to be able to sort of counteract their effectiveness on the interior. So we'll see how that plays out.
I asked a question earlier in the show to the listeners, and we got a lot of good answers. I'll get your answer. Something that happened in week 1 that you think is sustainable this season, something that maybe surprised people that happened in week 1, but you think is sustainable moving forward?
I would say just the impact of the interior defensive line, and the fact that they have a young player in the wings in Milton Williams, and they have Hassan Ridgeway that also has played well when he's been available, which is now he's been 15 games in over 2 seasons now. So I think that they have enough depth there and enough capable players to sustain that throughout the season. And that's where a lot of the games are ultimately going to be won and determined. So you have to like what you saw there. And I think that's going to carry over throughout the season.
All right, Andrew DiCecco from the InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew, obviously Philadelphia, I said, won this game last year. That game was in San Francisco. This year the game's in Philadelphia. And obviously this is a much different Eagles team. The 49ers are different. They had a lot of injuries last year. It looks like they're going to have a lot of injuries again. So I'll ask you, how do you see this game kind of working out on Sunday?
I think both teams are going to start to feel each other out in the early goings, and then I think you're going to see a big play from one of the teams, and I think you're going to start to see both offenses sort of settle in and get into a rhythm, sort of bobbing and weaving with the flow of the game. Much like a boxing match. I keep alluding to that because that's been Nick Sirianni's thing. He's round 2 this week, of course. So I think that's what you're going to see, and I think that the Eagles are going to continue to carry over that momentum from last week and take advantage of a wounded and short-handed 49ers defense and put up points in bunches. And Nick Sirianni is going to get his first home win this weekend, and I think it's going to be come down to the wire, because this is a much better team than what they faced on last Sunday. But I think the Eagles are going to win this game 27-24.
27-24, Andrew DiCecco, a hard-fought boxing type of match, and he likes the Eagles to win. By the way, Kinlaw is out 6 to 8 weeks with an oblique injury, so there's another big injury for the 49ers. They are just losing guys left and right over there. Again, we'll get you the injury report on them up to date here in just a moment. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. It is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and he, like all guests on the Sports Bash, was kind enough to join us. Brought to you by Dell for your small business needs. Call a Dell Technologies advisor today. Andrew, appreciate it, man.
You got it, man. Have a good weekend.
And Andrew's back on Tuesday with his recap of the Eagles and the Niners. He likes Philadelphia to win the game. So our first official pick goes into the Eagle column from Andrew DiCecco. Tomorrow, Adam Kaplan's with us, and this brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destination all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Hill. This is the Sports Bash.